The truth of the matter is the Minister of Heritage, and in your case, you've testified as well, and now before both houses of Parliament. Uh, and on both occasions, it's been crystal clear that this bill, the previous Broadcasting Act, gives the power to over user-generated content. And there's no denying that. You have that capacity if you want to exercise that capacity. And anybody that denies that, they're threading a needle. That's just not honest. Following that aftermath statement in the House, which my colleague, and I'm following up on the question from Senator Manning, MP Biddle, and we all know who MP Biddle is, asked if the CRTC had ever regulated actual content rather than just distribution. And you replied in the House, I don't dictate content, neither what is broadcasted nor what is watched, end of quote, which is similar to what you're saying tonight, correct? But the truth of the matter is, at that time when you were giving that testimony, you were aware, and as it turns out, we're all aware now, the CRTC was sitting on a ruling regarding content from a Radio-Canada broadcast in which a racial slur was used. The Commission sat on this decision for a number of months as the debate around this bill unfolded. So the question is very simple. When you come and you say you don't have power over generated content, clearly you exercise power over generated content vis-a-vis Radio-Canada and that very famous racial slur that I don't want to use here. And there was outrage and criticism by my fellow Quebecers across the province for censorship. So my question to you is very simple. Do you consider the decision that the CRTC took in regards to the decision vis-a-vis Radio-Canada and that particular racial slur as controlling content? Or do you have another definition? Because if that, and that to me is very much controlling content, and that is at the core of what I'm very concerned about in terms of the authority and the power which was exercised in this tangible case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would, with respect, disagree with your statement. I do not believe that is interfering with content. We have established in Canada codes of conduct, and for content. And it's what I would call a co-regulatory model. For the private broadcasters, it is in the hands of the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council. And they are all broadcasters are members. And when offensive content or questionable content arises, the matter goes to the CBSC and they issue rulings. They do not control, nor do we, what is said, but rather whether or not the content was appropriate and abided by those codes. In the case of Radio-Canada and the CBC, they are not members of the CBSC. They have internal ombudspersons, one on the French, one for Radio-Canada, one for CBC English Language Services, and ultimately in both cases, matters can be escalated, to use a term, to the CRTC for final resolution if the complainant is not satisfied. In that case, and I'm going to stop very shortly after this because, as you would know, the matter is now under appeal at the Federal Court of Appeal, and so we're not going to comment on further. The decision speaks for itself. The question of whether or not we exceeded our jurisdiction is in front of the court, but the jurisdiction related to the application of standards, not the content itself. We don't say what can and cannot be broadcast, but if we receive a complaint from an individual, and we'll use a different example, that uses a different racial slur, and it comes to our attention, we will deliberate, as we did, and we rendered a decision. It speaks for itself.
It does speak for itself, and with all due respect, Chair, the CRTC in this case regulated content, and that's why it's before the courts, and that's why it's being litigated. And of course,
with respect, that's your interpretation.
It is my interpretation, but like I said, many people, particularly in my own province, across the board, share that interpretation, and that's why we're in this quagmire, and why it really has called into question the risks that are associated with Bill C-11. I'll follow up on another question.
With respect, Chairman, the complainant was also from the province of Quebec.
Yes, it was. But again, you took a decision in regards to content, and that is not something that I'm imagining And again, it will be, I guess, decided by a court of law. But again, it also reinforces the fact that you have that authority. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. All I'm simply saying is you have the authority vis-a-vis Bill C-11 as you've had it under the Broadcasting Act. That's all I've said. And that's why the CRTC is the powerful agency that it is. And it's a decision we, as legislators, have given you that authority. I'm not questioning what you did. You exercised that authority of regulating that content. My debate is here vis-a-vis before it gets to that level, that I don't believe that authority should be given privilege.